بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين رحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين يا أبا عبد الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء يا غريب يا مظلوم يا شهيد بأرض كربلاء ثم السلام عليكم يا أهل الأوزاع الحسين مظلوم جميع ورحمة الله وبركاته أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتاب الحكيم وهو أصدق الصادقين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأوحى ربك للنحل أن اتخذ من الجبال بيوتا من الشجر ومما يعرشون صلوات على محمد. We've been contemplating and deciphering the meanings of the Quran in a particular verse in the Surah An-Nahl. It's a very ambitious project, by the way, to depend on one symbolic verse of the Quran, but there is my own shortcoming rather than the Quranic shortcoming. I need to decipher the Quran. I need to understand the Quran with the instruments that are available to me, with the dictionaries, with the tafasir, whatever is available to me. What is most challenging aspect of the Quran is, if you notice by reading the Quran, it changes the audience constantly. Sometimes it is the believer. Sometimes it's a non-believer. Sometimes it's the people who are following other religions like Jews and Christians. What it reveals, I think, is a very powerful way of communicating the ideas of Islam at different levels with different peoples. We rarely see a scripture like that, by the way. If you study Bible, the style of Bible is narrative. New Testament is narrative. That means there is a story being told. Within the story, there is the teaching of the founder. It's not difficult to follow because you already have a chronology of the ideas that are being presented to you. In the mission of Jesus Christ, you find that the Gospel of Matthew gives you all the details. But the details are located in the story that is being told. Therefore, then it becomes easier for us to contextualize what Nabi Isa is teaching at different times. Sermon on the Mount, River Jordan baptism, all these things are different aspects of the life of the founder, and we are able to see it. What is not available in the Quran is something that you and I are challenged with, to find the context of what is being said. Are you with me? If you hear a verse, then you want to understand, when was it said? What was the audience? Why was it said? So you open the small chapters in the Quran and you know these chapters are Meccan chapters. Because the message, the way it is being given to you, is clear enough for you to say, this must be early messages of the Prophet. As you know, in the Meccan chapters, we don't even know that all the chapters are Meccan. Historians have later on told us that this particular chapter is Meccan. In the middle of the Meccan chapter, there is a verse that was revealed in Medina. How can that be possible? The chronology is lost. But even in one surah like Surah An-Nahl, the story is about the death of the earth and the revival of the earth. And the signs that God provides you and me to contemplate on the work God is doing to habitate the earth. In other words, you and I are the center of concern. Should I use, or can I use, Quran is anthropocentric. It's concerned with humanity. The main subject of the Quran is you and I. Therefore, all the message that is coming piecemeal, one by one, at different times in the life of the Prophet himself, is now being collected and put forward for you and me in the later generations. By the way, I must tell you that the Quran that you and I know, the way you and I know it, there are two theses about it. One thesis says this Quran was compiled and collected later on under the Khulafa al-Rashidun. It started with the first Khalifa's time, then the second Khalifa's time, then the third Khalifa's time. Who was the one who said, we need a uniform copy of the Quran? We can't let the Kufa people dictate what the Quran is like. We can't allow the Basra people tell us how the Quran should be read. We should be concentrating on the Quran that is available in Hijaz. The copy that is available to the people in Hijaz should become the canonized copy. That means accepted by everyone. The second thesis, which is, by the way, uniquely, I say, attributed to Ayatollah Khouei in his Al-Bayan, is that the Quran was already compiled under the Prophet's own directives, as Suyuti in Al-Itqan says it. That the Prophet ﷺ used to ask his scribes to write, and they would read it back to him, and he would say, this ayah is not for this surah, it goes in this surah. And this particular section was part of this surah, why is it here now? So you can see very clearly how the Prophet actively engaged himself in the compilation of the book that you and I regard as the heavenly book, it's the holy book, and you and I believe that this is verbatim the way it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The only reason I bring this up is it raises the question about the mission of the Prophet for the community. Although we are going to talk in the seminar tomorrow about the community, but I want to tell you something, I want to share something with you, that I want to ask this question to you. Do you think the Prophet had any vision for this community? Did he think about this community as an Arab community in the 7th century, which will be living in this Jaziratul Arab, as they say it, Arabian Peninsula? Did he think that he would be seeing this community establishing itself very well, the way some early Arab historians thought about it. That Islam was the religion of the Arabs. The Quran is in Arabic, the Prophet is Arab, and therefore this should remain within the Arabian Peninsula. Not only that, under the second caliph, it's very interesting to note that even Christian Arabs were tolerated as part of the community. And in Medina, one of the new theses that has appeared in the University of Sydney by Andrew Stone is worth reading. If you go to the library, you might find a copy. And he talks about the Prophet's experiment with the Jewish community to establish the first civil society. Imagine how early the Prophet ﷺ had taught about the civil society. Hebrew Bible tells us about a tribal society. Yes, because these were the tribal prophets. The Semites were tribal people. The Semitic people had their own understanding about their own designs, their own goals. So when you look at the Hebrew Bible, the context of the Hebrew Bible is tribal. Thoroughly tribal in the sense that even Daniel's book later on, and even, Ezekiel later on, all these books of the Bible, of the Hebrew Bible, are somehow addressing the issues in the context of the Hebrew tribes. There were many tribes. At least the Quran talks about 12 tribes of Nabi Musa. Whereas what we find in the Quran is a shifting movement of the addressee. Constantly the addressee is changing. Sometimes this is Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Sometimes this is Ya ayyuhan nas. Or sometimes no addressee is there, but the content is universal. The teaching is universal enough, and you and I can see that this is something that applies to everyone. Remember, for one thing, all religions are very particularistic. They are addressing their own communities. So when you are talking about Ummah, you are talking about Ummah of Nabi Musa, Ummah of Nabi Ibrahim, Ummah of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All these are Ummahs. They are communities. And they are particular communities, and they are being trained to become the model of the community. Let me put it very clearly. That the Quran is searching for a paradigm of human civilization. The Quran wants to teach us that the future of humanity is dependent upon cooperation and sharing resources among human communities. You will not be able to sustain the earth without taking care of the earth. You will not be able to sustain the nature if you keep on destroying the nature. The Quran is warning that this beautiful earth, this something that we are constantly pointing to you, وَالشَّمْسِ وَالضُّحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا. All these are references for you and me to learn to appreciate the nature. Constant reminders in the Quran how to appreciate the nature and how to love the nature as part of our partners. Fazlur Rahman, in his book Major Themes of the Quran, has one sentence with which I have objected, and my students have objected also, that human beings are the masters of the nature, whereas I am saying that human beings are the partners of the nature. They cannot dominate the nature. They cannot exploit it the way they want to exploit it. Rather, they should consider that there's a partnership between them. I take care of you, I take care of the earth, you provide the food for me. I take care of the air, you provide for me safe air to breathe. All these things are intertwined and interrelated. Surah An-Nahl in the metaphor of civilization that Quran provides, has some key elements that I should just report briefly for those who were not in the previous lectures. My function is simply to remind you so that you know where we stopped last night. I know where I stopped last night. But I also want you to be participant in what I'm doing. Because without your participation, my communication is not going to work. Therefore, I will also urge you that when the time comes for the questions, limit your questions to the lecture as far as possible, to the content of the lecture, which is ambiguous. Sometimes I'm not able to convey it the way I should be conveying it, because I have limited time. Within that limited time, these are Muharram nights. We are here gathered for our love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. I don't think we want to depart from that at all. We really want to respect that moment that you and I are looking forward to every year. And had it not been for that miracle of Imam Hussain, you and I would not have gathered here. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Pay attention to the ayah that I have recited. وَأَوْحَىٰ رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ. And your Lord revealed to the bees, saying, make hives in the mountains and in the trees and in what they build. That is in the roofs, what they build. Ya'rushun arsh is the roof. Then eat of all the fruits and walk in the ways of your Lord humbly. Walk in the ways of your Lord is ta'ara, is a metaphor. That God is guiding your movement. You're not moving only on your own will. God is guiding you through the instinct that He has provided you. Therefore, it says, awha, why? And you are supposed to go and suck from these flowers the liquid. And then what happens? There comes forth from within it a beverage of many colors. Because wherever you are, you can find regional honey, by the way. And regional honey has a different taste everywhere. If the honey was, produced in a farm, then it has a different taste than the one that you picked up in the village somewhere. It is very different. But there is something common in all the honey. Most surely there is a sign in, there is a healing for human beings in it. Until yesterday, I've been telling you that in civilization there has to be healing power. Civilization should be able to heal us, to provide us with remedies of our problems. There could be psychological problems, there could be social problems, there could be physical problems, and there could be spiritual problems. All kinds of problems must be solved by the civilization. No civilization can say, we need the material, we don't like the spiritual. You have no choice. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that your comprehensive needs must be preserved in the development of the civilization. Because civilization has one purpose: to heal you, to provide a cure for you. And that's what the honey does. Now, most surely there is a sign in this for the people who reflect. I have been also emphasizing the role of civilization, and this is what I have done. In the previous lectures, I have tried to tell you that the Quran speaks about reviving the earth. Today, you and I are conscious of the environment. We are talking about using the cups not for once, but use them again and again. We are becoming conscious, but I think this is very superficial. It's still not doing the work. Because there are larger industries that are destroying the environment without your knowledge. Without you and I knowing what they are doing. They are making money. There are international, multinational corporations. They are engaged in doing that. Go in the third world countries and it's more obvious. Here, there's a subtle requirement that the cars must be clean, otherwise you don't pass your, inspection every 6 months or every 12 months, whatever the period is, decided by the law. But what is important to keep in mind is that, metaphorically, the Quran is telling us that the revival of life after it has been destroyed by natural causes or by humanly caused destruction is your and my responsibility. Nobody can do it for us. As much as United Nations is trying to do it, UNESCO is trying to do it, unless we cooperate with them, nothing can be achieved. Correct? Let's move to the second point. Now, in other words, we need to listen to the Quran very carefully. We need to listen to the Quran very carefully. Those who listen are the ones who have accepted to abide. See what I'm doing here. Who have accepted to abide, not only to kiss the Quran and leave it down. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your commitment to put into practice, to put in application what you are hearing. Without that commitment, we cannot move forward in any society for that matter. Now, I know that the lawgiver are those who are providing us with the legal framework. They're saying that if you don't do it on your own will, we'll force you to do it. So now they're telling us. Now you go in all university, everywhere, they're talking about sustainability. That's what they're talking about. Because there's so much wastage in this part of the world, that's unbelievable. What you and I are doing besides using these cups, there are so many things that we are using which are all destroying the environment. You won't believe. You should just go where there are landfill for the garbage, for the trash that you throw. And what you throw is amazingly, has no responsibility. Now the government is saying, you will recycle here. And Canada is very socialistic in that respect, says, no, you will put this here, you will put this here, you will put that here. In America, there is no such thing. If your conscience doesn't bite you, you can get away with anything. So that means we have still not taken the Quran, we have not listened to the Quran, and we have not abided by the teachings they find reasonable and rational. We find it rational and reasonable. We want to leave this earth better for the future generation. Finally, this is the point that I want to emphasize. These are the people who are listening, you and I and many others in past generation, in the future generation, who are intelligent and who are in search for the truth. And I have written truth as a T capital. That means al-haq. We are trying to find al-haq. We are trying to reach the truth. Not only that, we are searching it and following carefully and preserving it when we know it. I want to move on now. In last night's gathering, I said quite clearly, the fundamental virtue that you and I need to learn in this environment or any environment anywhere is to be yourself. You remember that? This we call the virtue of authenticity. If you are not authentic, if you are not exactly what you believe in your own self, then you are pretending to be something different. What I raised my voice against last night was that the more you continue to pretend what you are not, you fall in the category of hypocrites. You don't want to do that for a long time. Are you with me? You don't want to fall in the category of munafiq for a long time, because God has declared munafiqun as kadhibun. They are liars. They are not telling the truth. In other words, if you stop listening to your own self, and if you don't respond to your inner needs and outer needs the way they should be met by you as an individual who has the responsibility. In the language of the Sharia, you and I are mukallif. mukallaf. We've been told to do certain things. Whether we like it or not, we should submit to it. If we follow the Sharia, then you and I are supposed to follow it. That means we should submit to it. As I talk about it, I've been pondering about something that I am not God's policeman, so don't get me wrong. My sisters especially should not get me wrong. I'm not God's policeman. I'm not Jundullah. No. I am not Hezbollah either. I am not even God's party. What I believe in is, what I share with you in a very brief moment just now, is that there is a protocol of how we attend these gatherings, by the way. I'm not asking you to adorn full veil. No, that's not my business. That's your business. It's between you and God. I will never, never interfere. La ikrah fi din. There's no compulsion in the matters of religion. But there is adab. There's manners. And we want to follow the minimum manners that are required. If somebody told you in our club, you must wear a necktie, won't you go with a necktie? If they say you must have a jacket, you must have a long skirt in our gatherings, wouldn't you do that? What I'm simply suggesting is that this is an Islamic gathering. And I'm not asking you to adorn parda. That's not my business. But I'm asking you very humbly as your brother, your father, maybe your grandfather, I don't know. I'm old enough to have all kinds of relationships. And I'm simply saying that wherever possible, please be aware that we are in the presence of Hazrat Fatima Salamullah alayha. Don't ask me to prove it. I won't be able to prove it. But I can assure you that Fatima Zahra is somewhere here. For her sake, we'll respect what she is expecting, the minimum from us. She's not telling us to be as covered as she is herself. For men also, I regard certain minimum requirements in the way we dress up, in the way we come to these gatherings. I don't ask you to wear caps on your head. My friends from South Africa used to tell me that there was a time in South Africa you could not go to the mosque without topi. They said, topi. I don't know. I'm glad that ritual is over, you know. But there are certain things that still remain enforceable by your conscience. I'm very, very clear about this matter. Please don't involve me to give you a fatwa. I'm not Ahl Fatwa. I will not give you a fatwa. I'll simply say, you are my sisters, you are my brothers, I advise you. If you feel I'm reasonable, follow it. If you feel no, I'm not reasonable, don't follow it. It's up to you. But at least I am clear on the clear record of Hazrat Fatima that I made that point at one point, at one time on the 7th night of Muharram. I'm simply saying that civilization needs to be sustained by our sense of authenticity. My brothers and sisters, we are at the moment in a crisis of authenticity. As moderns, we don't know where we belong. Identities are mixed up. We don't know how to identify ourselves. Are we Muslim, Americans, Canadians, or what are we? Because there's a confusion in our mind. How much of culture is predominant in our own identity? How much of my belief is predominant in my identity? We are not in a position to answer any constructively, with clear answers. We are not able to do that because we don't have the training. Imagine in our majlises, when does anybody discuss our identity? Have you heard people telling you about identity and the crisis of identity? Have you heard anything like that? Do they talk about civilization? Do they talk about civil society? Our Prophet from day one knew that the source of continuity of the community is a civil society, where human beings are respected for what they are, without any exterior conditions attached to them. where he spoke about the Jews to be part of the Ummah. Can you imagine? You and I don't even know about it, that the Prophet declared the tribes of the Jews in Medina to be part of the Ummah. That means there was already an understanding that human beings need to respect one another, need to recognize the rights of one another, and need to take the responsibility of their behavior towards one another. If they don't do it, they lose an opportunity to become part of the civilization, because civil society is the core of the civilization. Do you hear about the civil movement that we are now trying to teach the Iraqis? In Iraq, there's a problem of the lack of civil society. What does that mean? It means that me as a Shia, you as a Sunni, we are first of all the citizens of Iraq. Then I'm a believer in this community and that community. We cannot fight with one another simply because I belong to this community and you belong to that community. First of all, we are all citizens of Iraq. We cannot fight with one another. This is the core of civil society. That we will come together, we'll have civil association, we'll work together, we'll share the responsibility, and we'll share the accountability. This is what is expected of a citizen today. The idea of citizen, I must confess, is absent in the Sharia. In the Sharia, you're either a believer or a non-believer or the people of the book. We are now introducing new idea in the Sharia, by the way. Yes. You might say, what right do you have to introduce anything like that? Well, I will tell you what right do I have. If the Quran is teaching me that human beings have dignity, that means they are respected for their authenticity, whatever they look like, whatever race they belong to, whatever gender they belong to. But they have a human dignity. There is something essential about their being. Then I will have to submit that anybody who denies other human being a respect based on human dignity is denying the teachings of the Quran. Are you with me? I'm not making a big claim. I'm not claiming something out of blue. I'm not going to promote my book. But you can take a look at my book, Islam and the Challenge of Human Rights. There I discuss the sources that the Quran provides. And I'm not writing to please my colleagues in the West. I'm writing for you and me. My books are not totally academic. This last book that I wrote, Islam and the Challenge of Human Rights, is for you and me. I did not write for my colleagues. It has become one of the best sellers at the moment, but for odd reasons. Because there isn't anything that is critically evaluating the Islamic teachings in the light of the Quran. Listen to me carefully. Critical assessment of Islamic teachings in the light of the teachings of the Quran. That means I'm saying to you and to myself, the Quran is above anything that you and I believe. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If the Quran tells me that all human beings have a respect, then no teachings can negate it. The question is, can the Sunnah negate the Quran? Never. Because Quran is at the top. As a source of my and your directives, Imam Shafi argued a lot about what is Qadi. Al-Qadi al-Quran. Hal huwa sunnah aw al-Quran binafsi. Who can judge the Quran for its validity? Can the Sunnah say, I'm going to judge you, the Quran, because I have more details than you have? The Sunnah is very, very much detailed. Imam Shafi came to the conclusion, at no point can Sunnah negate the Quran. The Quran can negate the Sunnah, but not the other way around. Because Naskh or abrogation is possible only by the higher authority to the lower authority. If I told you something tonight and tomorrow night I come and say, sorry, I made a mistake last night, then I need higher authority than me to tell you that what I told you last night was wrong. And therefore you need to change now on the authority of the higher authority than me. Otherwise it doesn't carry the weight. It doesn't carry the weight of the change of mind on my part. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? One fatwa, for example, there are two alims giving you different fatwas. You are following one alim and saying that I follow this particular alim. But I find this other alim giving me the fatwa to be far more rational and reasonable. You are usually told in the community that you can't change your opinion. Even if your even if your five sensory perceptions give you a confidence that what you are reading now is far more authoritative and far more reasonable, you still need to adhere to the first opinion because you have the taqleed there. You are following that authority. I haven't found any Quranic justification for this, by the way. Because if you ask, فَاسْأَلْ أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, ask those who don't know about something that you know, that you don't know. In other words, you always recognize, you always search for a higher authority. If you don't search for a higher authority, then you will not be able to succeed in finding the right guidance. The question of authenticity then has what we call markaziyya, has the centrality in our virtuous development. And that's why I'm now dealing with a tougher topic of good character and its acquisition. I'm not satisfied simply to describe for you what is a good character. Because my function in sitting in this place is to show you a prescription. You might agree with the prescription, accept it, is up to you. You might say, it doesn't enter my head, I will not accept it. That's your, what I call, autonomy. Because with this idea of authenticity, there's also the idea of autonomy. I'm a reasonable person. I can think for myself. I don't have to follow someone whose opinions appear to me quite irrational. I can't accept those opinions. You have a right to do that. In modern times, that's the part of your strength. In modern times, when you say you have an autonomy, that's what we mean by that. That means I have a right to say my president is wrong. His foreign policy I don't agree with. He is cheating me. I'll not cast my vote for him or for any of his policies. You can do that because this is known as autonomy. Istiqlal fardi. Individual independence of making a decision without outside pressure on you. You determine yourself what is good for you. Authenticity is connected with this freedom. But now let's move. From this night onward until the Wednesday night that I'm with you, I'm now exploring very, very closely what Islam has to offer. And I'm assuring you something. For me, the Quran is the hujjah. Quran is the proof. Absolute authority. All the rest I will examine in the light of the Quran. If it doesn't agree with the Quran, I will not agree with that. Are you with me? Do we agree on this? The Quran says something, and that's authoritative. That's the word of God. That's the book of God that has been given to us to read and to appreciate at different times, and not necessarily fall back on the classical explanations and hold on to classical explanations, because each explanation is the product of its own society and historical period. Keep that in mind. You can't say what Tabari decided in the 9th century applies to me today in 21st century, because that will not work. What I'm seeking then is that good character cannot be irrelevant to the teachings. If I want to develop a good character, if I want to develop a good psychology of becoming a good person, then I need to find something that is relevant to me in my own times. If I put it back even in my parents' time, it doesn't click well. Do you understand? Even my parents were only 30, 40 years generation back, and yet that doesn't make sense. Let's look at this. You don't have to pay attention to it. I will certainly explain to you. I'm more interested in finding how to act virtuously. I don't want to present theories to you. Teachers of ethics, for example, tell you there is ontological ethics. There is something in an action that you and I know is not good. Therefore, you and I declare murder is bad. You and I declare lying is bad. There's something about lying that doesn't agree with our inherent dignity. And we say, okay, we don't want that. Pursuing virtue through habituation in virtue. Remember last night we raised the question, if you did not believe in any religion, if you did not believe in any book, well, you are a doctor who is humanitarian, who is serving human beings. You are fighting, diseases on the front, on the borders. Médecins Sans Frontières, you are going there, you are fighting them, and you are treating. How many doctors are there working in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Iraq, everywhere? What is the purpose there? The purpose is to serve humanity. You and I can say that maybe 50% or 60% of these doctors do not have any belief, by the way. They're agnostic. Because I work in the hospital, I know the culture. The culture of the hospital is agnostic. It doesn't promote any religious or spiritual feelings at all. There is a chapel in the hospitals, I don't deny that. If you want to pray, you can go. Your loved one is in the hospital, in the intensive care unit, you go and pray in that chapel, that's fine. They also have now places for Muslims to pray, Jews to pray, and also atheists to pray, if they are praying at all. You might be surprised. The one who doesn't believe in anything still believes in the conscience. So you have people of variety who are working there. What I'm looking for is application of how to be virtuous through habituation. By habituation, I mean to make a habit of doing something correctly. Remember something, that whenever you decide to be a good person, whenever you decide to do a good act, if you don't repeat it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it's never part of you. Do you see what I'm talking about? That's habituation. You are in habit of telling lies. Somebody calls you up and says, I was waiting for you. Oh, I was so busy, I couldn't come. That's a lie. One lie, another lie, third lie, fourth lie, fifth lie, and you are becoming ingrained in a vice of telling lies. The opposite also is true. You are a person who's never satisfied by telling lies. You are blunt. Look, this is what I am. I can't come, okay? That's how you say it. I can't. I wouldn't say, inshallah, I'll come, and then I don't appear. Right? This is how we use inshallah these days, Inshallah means you will not come. Of course, what it really means is if God wills, I'll be there, But the way we use it in the culture, it has now become habituation. Whenever somebody says inshallah to me, I say, oh my goodness, this will never happen. Inshallah will make a progression. Oh, that means it's not. And this is, by the way, everything in the Middle East is inshallah. You are doing something, inshallah. Even if there's a bomb to be, made and, used against the enemy, inshallah we will use it. We don't know whether they'll use it against the enemy or somebody else, against innocent people. In other words, there is always this ambiguity, what I call incongruity, absurdity, in the way we see religion, in the way we apply religion. What I'm talking about is there a capacity in you and me to act the way we decide? There's a willpower given by God. And that willpower is so strong that when we make a decision, this is the way I want to be. I'm aware of different ways of making excuses of not doing things rightly. But I'm also aware of the strength that we have. How we make a strength, how we make an effort that works so well with us. When this capacity is corrupted, this capacity in Arabic is istita'a. Man istata'a alayhi. When the Quran speaks about the Hajj, what does it say? The Hajj is wajib on man istata'a alayhi, the one who is mustati. So you and I, we read the masala in the books, and we say, you know, $10,000 clean and pure. Those other $90,000, I don't know about that. But for going for Hajj, this 10,000 I separate, I give my khums, I give my zakat. These 10 are clean enough for me to make the Hajj. That's cheating. I'm sorry, that's cheating. It doesn't work. Oh, you know, we ask our ulama, we say, you know, my money is mixed. You know, I also sell beer in my shop, and I also sell, you know, the Quran in my store. So halal and haram is mixed. Oh, okay. No, there's no problem. You can sort it out. Give the khums and the money becomes clean. Wow. What an easy prescription. It doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't work that way. That's totally against the ethics, financial ethics. It doesn't work that way. Don't ever do that. No. If somebody told you, then there is a problem. There's a problem there. That means they have not understood the spirit of the Quran. What I'm talking about is when the capacity is corrupted. A person acts for the sake of his own conception, of his own moral excellence, and falsely conceives of his virtue as his own independent achievement. Hey, I don't believe in any religion. Haven't you heard people? I don't believe in anything. Oh, look at me. My life is good. I do everything good. And people are really good, by the way. If you assess them honestly, they are not bad people. When they say, you know, I came to the decision myself. I heard no religion, I had no prophet, nothing, and I was able to become good. Most persons continue through their lives to act for the wrong reasons and thus lack virtue. Most people. Do the research and you will find people have done work in what we call public ethics. It's very weak, by the way. Today, public ethics is very weak. There are so many loopholes that you are actually using those loopholes in order for you to defeat the purpose for which you are acting. In other words, there is no way for you to have that virtue ingrained in your personality. What you and I are looking for is stability of the personality. Not changing personality. Yesterday I did this, today I'm not doing this. And according to the whims and whimsical as we happen to be sometimes, we change. That's not what it is. Virtue in the Jahiliyyah, in the pre-Islamic days, this is historical observation, depended upon a sense of pre-Islamic virtue of piety. There were 4 virtues recognized in the pre-Islamic days. They were all part of the Muruwa. The Muruwa system was what we call intertribal system, locating the tribes in such a way and holding them responsible for their behavior towards one another. Otherwise, the tribes were willing to fight and kill one another for as long as they wanted to. But the 4 things were required. If you are brave, then your brave is to fight the wrong. If you are generous, then your generosity is to help those who are deprived. If you are kind towards your family, that's where it begins, then that kindness should go outside your family. And under the most difficult circumstances, when you are asked to surrender, you don't surrender, but stand firm. Some of these values are part of this, what the Quran says, al-ma'ruf. Do you see the Quran, how the Quran says? The Quran, when it speaks about so many virtues in the Arabian tribal system, it is talking about those virtues in the context of the Semitic tribe. It is telling them, this is how you're supposed to be. But what the Quran is also trying to do is, it is trying to teach an acknowledgement of dependency of one's character and agency, not in terms of kinship and tribal relationship, but in terms of your commitment to faith. People used to think that Banu Hashim, you see this idea that is spread among us, the Sayyids are superior to the non-Sayyids. Totally against the Quran, by the way. There is no such thing. Please listen to me carefully. There's no such thing. We are defeating the egalitarian system that the Quran is teaching us. Banu Hashim, if they behave well, then they are as respected as any other Muslim is respectable. There's no difference. And therefore, many of the ulama who believed in the homes in a proper sense, they said, this is open to all Muslims to be shared among all Muslims. We have been taught and we have accepted without questioning. This is known as taqleed, blind following. That means we have not done research. I'm challenging you, if you can find me one verse in the Quran that says the descendants of the Prophet are superior to the non-descendant other Muslims. If you can find me one ayah in the Quran. The only ayah that I continue to read in the Quran is Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most respectable among you is the one who is morally and spiritually conscious. If you are not, then you have missed the target. In other words, what we have done is that we have still allowed the tribal kinship to enter the development of virtue, which it hasn't worked. Clifford Gates, he was traveling to Indonesia in an aeroplane from France. And next to him was sitting one Arab. And Clifford Gates is a scholar of Islam. He studied anthropology. And he studied Islamic anthropology. So he was talking to the next passenger in the seat. This passenger said, I'm Muslim. Oh, okay. So he put his hand in the coat and he took out a small Quran. And here the hostess came and she poured the wine for him. So in one hand the Quran, in the other hand the wine, and he's drinking. This is the book of God. The irony. I'm a descendant of the Prophet. I'm a Muslim, culturally. And you take out the Quran from your pocket. You know, George Hourani, one of the professors who I respect, highly respect him, George Fadlu Hourani was a Lebanese Christian, and he always carried the Quran in his pocket. And he told his public, his speeches, he said, this book is more important than Bible for me. Here is a Christian using the book of God, so to speak, to make a point about his dedication to this book, and truly what George Hourani has written about Zulmun Nafs, about the Quranic ethics, nobody, no Muslim has written like him. I'm telling you, no Muslim has written like George Hourani. Oh, look at this man sitting next to Clifford Gates. I'm a descendant of the Prophet. Oh, I am a Muslim. And here I hold this. You know this woman scholar who was a big talk of the 80s and 90s? Fatima Marnesi. Huh? She wrote a book, Beyond the Veil, I don't know what and what not and what not and what not, you know. And we heard that she was going to speak in Washington, D.C., in Georgetown University. So me and my wife, we traveled from Charlottesville to go, you know, and get in the traffic and attend the lecture at 7 o'clock. She did the same thing. Holding the glass of wine in her hand. Alors, nous commençons aujourd'hui. And that's how she started a discours de l'Islam. This is what I'm going to do for you. And here she has this wine glass in her hand. I have no problem with the wine. It's your business. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. To you, your religion, to me, my religion. I don't interfere in yours, you don't interfere in mine. Don't represent me. Don't represent me in public in that form. You can't do that. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm open enough to tell you that that my students in the summer courses, the way they dress up is deplorable, to put it very mildly. And God forbid if the month of Ramadan comes in the summer and you are teaching a summer course, you are constantly sinning. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu. Of course you develop a very strong skin, very thick skin, nothing affects you anymore. But they're half naked. What makes them do that, I don't know. It's very surprising many times. You find men are more covered in summer times than the women are. Is it that they don't feel the heat, the men? Or what is the secret of all this? And I have not been able to understand. I don't think Socrates or Aristotle or anybody would have understood this. That how does it work? What I'm suggesting here is that this irony of double role that we are playing all the time, this problem of not being true to yourself is very damaging to our personal growth. If we don't do that, we are somehow telling ourselves, you are useless, unless you pretend to be what you are. Because one of the things that is happening is, in the modern times, social mobility is available to the one from whom you expect certain things which he or she is not able to deliver, but they try to do it, and therefore they have what we call faithless commitment to it. I say a very, very heavy sentence. I'm trying to cut it down. That today, social mobility demands from you a certain kind of makeup, certain kind of behavior, certain kind of exposure. And you do that. When we were students in Iran, the professors during the Shah's time used to say, where is your necktie? Because we're supposed to wear neckties. In Shah's time, university was a fashion show. All the boys had suits, and the girls had head makeup and everything. And you were stopped at the gate of the university, and the women who were covered were told to remove their cover. Look at what we call reverse. Now the opposite is true, by the way. If you are not properly covered, they slap you. So on both lines, I find ifrat or tafrit, as I say, extremism is not going to work with the virtues. Aristotle was telling us that there's an inner human condition. What is important for all of us is to realize that when you do something good, you feel good in yourself inside. When it was asked of you to be honest, and you were honest about it, then you feel good inside. That I was able to speak out honestly, the way it was expected of me. So what you feel inside yourself, the peace that you feel, I did the right thing. You remember sometimes when you were asked to do something right and you didn't do it, your conscience bites you? Quite the opposite. This is known as the pangs of conscience. It bites you. I was supposed to do this. This old man was falling and I was supposed to go and hold his hand. Why didn't I do it? I should have gone. It bites you. Similarly, Aristotle will tell you this is eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is you do something good and you feel inside yourself something good. It gives you peace that you did something good. Or when you don't respond to the call of doing, then you become upset. I've reached, there's so much for me to go, but I want to sum up what I'm saying, the challenges to our life today, Muslim life. You and I are the subjects. We can't criticize others when we don't engage in our own self-criticism. It's time for us to do that. It's time for us to realize that we must do that first so that we can help ourselves. And when we help ourselves, we can help others. Otherwise, we won't be able to do that. And I've been harping this, that one of the challenges that you and I are faced with is the continuum in the virtue. You know, when the Quran says, Aqimus Salat, I often wonder, why Aqimus Salat? Means continue to do it regularly. Aqimu means do it regularly. Don't do one day, then stop 5 days, then do again one day. You know, what God wants to see in us is a kind of a stable personhood. I'm a person, I'm developing, I'm growing into something, a very mature young man or young woman. I want to maintain something in me that would define my personhood. It's a big issue today in science, especially in neuroimaging. Today you are neuroimaging the hospitals. The new sciences can really look at your whole body. Neuroimaging, we are now discussing in the ethics, is neuroimaging all right? Does it not encroach upon the human personhood? Am I not exposed to the scientist or to the physician? Or is my privacy not sacrificed, compromised for the hospital or for this or for that? There is a lot of discussion going on. There is a conference in Houston in November about neuroimaging, neuroscience and its impact. What I'm suggesting to you is that human personality wants to acquire stability. What will give you peace, by the way, my sisters and my brothers? You and I are searching for inner peace. That peace will come only when there is a stability, there is a discipline in our life. When there is no discipline, when we are moving wishy and washy, we will not be able to have that peace in ourselves. You will realize very quickly that nothing is working. Life of habituation in virtue, where the noble paradigm, uswatun hasana. I'm now going to bring the Prophet from tomorrow night onwards. Is the ultimate exemplar of virtue. This was the question of Yusuf Sivji. What is the other method of learning the virtue? You need an exemplar. Besides analyzing what virtue is all about, understanding the psychology of moral action, or how are you prompted to do something good, you also need to develop what we call the inner stability. How do I nurture it in such a way that becomes part of my personality? Following the exemplar must be understood simultaneously in terms of Muslims' aspiration. What do I aspire to be? Raise yourself, my sisters and brothers. Raise yourself in respect. You are human beings first. You have a dignity, and that dignity must be preserved at all costs. And in terms of divine agency, God has given us the ability to decide right and wrong. I'll go more into details tomorrow night. Into conformity with noble paradigm. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Then he says, this uswatun hasana is for those who have hope in God being their guide, who believe in God. And this is what is remarkable. That on the Ashura night, Imam Hussain alayhi salam is giving a speech. By 9th of Muharram, everything was determined. Imam Hussain had a lot of conversation with Umar ibn Saud. They decided there will be peaceful resolution. Imam Hussain was committed to peaceful resolution. In Iran, there are theses about that. Some say he went for political ambition that he had. That's why he sent Muslim bin Aqil ahead of time, so that he would prepare the army for him. And then he would go and conquer. I don't know whether they had that political ambition or not. I simply know one thing, that the more I read the paradigm of Karbala, the more I'm convinced that Imam Hussain was looking at the condition of the Ummah. He was looking at the Ummah and he said, this Ummah has lost its way. You know how a visionary leader looks at the community? When I see you, I have a certain vision in my mind. I'm not even capable of having that insight that Imam Hussain has it. But Imam Hussain is mentioning that. Time to time, from time to time, he's mentioning that Matat sunnatin nabawiyya. The Sunnah of the Prophet has been killed. Nobody is following the Quran. Nobody is following the Sunnah. And therefore the time has come for me to overlook my own safety and go into wilderness where my life doesn't count anymore. This is Imam Hussain. By 9th of Muharram, it was clear to Imam Hussain that nothing is going to change. When the army was attacked. Since morning they were coming in, they were moving closer and closer. Hazrat Abul Fazl Abbas came two to three times to Imam Hussain and said, Mawla, they're coming very closer. We need to do something. We need to protect ourselves. Said Abbas, wait. The time will come when I will make the decision. Abbas, with all that power of the youth, 32, 34 years old, had that respect of Imam Hussain in his mind all the time. Mawla. When the attack occurred on the 9th of Muharram in the afternoon, Abul Fazl Abbas came in. But even before Abul Fazl Abbas, Zainab entered the tent. So Imam Hussain was resting in the tent. This is 9th of Muharram at Asr time, by the way, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He was resting on his sword and had fallen asleep. Bibi Zainab comes, says, brother, wake up, they have attacked. There were arrows flowing, by the way, because the order had already come from Kufa. The messenger had told Umar ibn Sa'ad that if he doesn't start the hostilities against Imam Hussain, they better give the command to Shimr Zil-Jawshan. Shimr had brought that letter. And Imam Hussain was here expecting for the peaceful resolution. They attacked. Bibi Zainab wakes up Imam Hussain. Imam Hussain gets up and he stands up and says, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That's what you say when you're worried. And Imam Hussain did that. Bibi Zainab is asking, brother, you're giving me a very grim picture. Can you see the sister? You're giving a very grim picture. What is going to happen? In the meantime, as they are talking, Abul Fazl Abbas comes in. Mawla, they've attacked. Here Abbas is waiting for a response. They have attacked. Imam Hussain says, Ma kuntu abda'u bil harb. I will not start the battle. I haven't come to fight. Can you imagine what Imam Hussain is doing? You will see how he changes on Ashura Day. He is the one who is leading the attack on the army. But he says, no, I will not begin the hostilities. That means I don't want to be remembered on the pages of history as the one who began the fight. Look at this virtue. Just look at this uswatun hasana of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At night, before I come to that point, they gathered in one of the tents and Imam Hussain stood for the khutbah. It was the worst moment for him to speak. Imam Zain al-Abidin is the Rawi. The speech is recorded by the historians because it is reported by Imam Zain al-Abidin. He said, I drew very close to the tent. I was in other tents, half conscious, but I heard my father's voice. I moved closer and I heard his speech. In brief, Imam Hussain told his companions, they want only me. If I submit to them, they have no animosity towards my family or anybody else. Please, go away tonight. He told his companions, take hold of my family members and go. And he told, the young people, the old people, use the night as your camel. Nobody will know, and I'll remove my bay'ah from you. You are no more under my bay'ah. Don't worry about it. I will not complain on the day of judgment that you left me without any allegiance to me. I'm removing my allegiance from you. Imam Hussain put off the light that was burning. Said, this is the darkness of the night. You are free to go. Quite a number of people did go away, by the way, that night. Those who were left were very few. And these are the ones that I'm talking about, 120 in all. They say 72, but there were 120 in all. We have the names of everyone in the history. While he was standing there and while there was dark, Imam Hussain felt that somebody is on his legs. Put his hand and raised him. And he knew, Qasim, what are you doing? Imam Hussain, in his, as my teachers used to say, that in his knowledge of that God had given him, he made clear that everybody is going to be killed tomorrow, including my little one, Ali Asghar, is going to be killed. I've been told, everyone, Qasim is curious to know. Uncle, you said everybody's going to be killed? I said, yes. You said Abdullah Ali Asghar is going to be killed? I said, yes. But uncle, how can he go to the battlefield? The Rawi is saying that Imam at that point said, I will take him on my own hands and he will be killed. What Qasim was worried about is that this is a small baby. Are they going to enter the tent where the baby is sleeping? This was Qasim, yatim of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And Qasim is looking at his uncle. Uncle, is my name written in those? And that list said, yes, even you will go, Qasim. And he took hold of his nephew, because they say Qasim resembled Imam Hassan very much. He reminded him, how when we love our brothers, when the brother is dead, what do? We look at the children who resemble our brother. That was natural, wasn't it? And Imam Hussain looked at Qasim. Qasim? Yes. Ashura Day came, the night passed. I don't want to hold you too long. You know everything that I say. When the day came, Tabari is saying, by the way, I saw the sentence in Tabari, on the quotation, on the authority of Tabari says, Qasim, according to Hamid bin Muslim, used to come and kiss the feet of Imam Hussain. He would kiss the feet of Imam Hussain, he would kiss the hands of Imam Hussain. Can I go? Can I go? Can you imagine this? Qasim, by the way, in Karbala, is the only boy who is not baligh. Only Muhammad are baligh. I'm not talking about Ali Asghar. I'm talking about the youths. He's 13, 14-year-old. And therefore he's under the guardianship of his uncle. His uncle is going to make a decision about him. He's not allowed to make a decision on his own. He's still not an adult, so to speak. Because adulthood enters after finishing 15. Qasim is kissing the hands of his uncle. He sees, Muhammad are going. Ali Akbar has gone. Because the first one to go was Ali Akbar. They're all going and he's here. He can't take it. Uncle, I have to go. He said, no, go and sit down. He sat down, worried, very much worried, and this is the description given by Sheikh Mufid also. Very worried. He put his head on his, on his knees and started touching his hands, and he saw an amulet, tabiz. He said, my, what is this? And he took it out and came to his mother. Mother, what is this? Oh, this is what your father tied before he died for you. Can I open it? Said, yes. Actually, he had also mentioned that this can be opened at the time when it is very difficult for you to face the situation. They opened it. Mother and son opened it. And Qasim took it immediately to his uncle. Uncle, this is what my father had tied on me. Imam Hussein is reading it, in which Imam Hassan has said, one day my brother will be surrounded by the enemies that would want to kill him. At that point, if I'm alive, I will go and fight for him. But if I'm not alive, then you go and represent me. Imam Hussein, when he saw this, he could not hold back Qasim anymore. Qasim, are you ready? Imam Hussein is not going to leave him alone. كيف الموت عندك يا قاسم? What is your understanding of death? Do you understand what is death? Qasim is looking in his uncle's eyes and says, Ahla min asal. It's sweeter than honey. Imam Hussein clasps him, embraces him. And then he puts out he had long hair, Qasim had long hair. Put his hair, his what we say in Swahili, anampamba. He's decorating him. Tied his amama, and he's coming out, and he's making him ride the horse. Mufid says, Sheikh Mufid is quoting Tabari, by the way, that Qasim came. And he read the letters. He said, I am the son of so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. You have surrounded my uncle, but I'm not going to give in. I will fight until the last moment. There was someone there. Said, I will show him. Hamid bin Muslim says, I told him, shame on you. You want to kill this young boy? You want to kill him like that? He said, yes, I'll make his mother cry for him. Look at the language, by the way. The language that we are looking for, the language of tarahum, the language of mercy, the language of compassion, is totally absent. Am I not right to say that the people who were gathered in Karbala were totally against the Quranic Rahman? Am I not right to say that they had lost the sense of any kind of spiritual morality in their minds? They are willing to kill this boy. And by God, they did that. Qasim fought, and he fought as thirsty young boy of 13, 14 years old. He fought the enemy. And finally they surrounded him and they threw him down with the arrows and everything. I don't want to go into details. I just want to remind you that immediately as soon as he fell down, he called his uncle. Ya Amma adrikni. Imam Hussein heard, and Tabari says that the Rawi is reporting that at no point did Imam Hussein come out like that. But at this time, he came out like Shaheen, like the eagle jumping towards the army. What happened was that in that running of the army, Qasim's body was trampled. Tabari says by the time Hussein got close to Qasim and picked him up, he was already gone. But now Hussein ibn Ali is holding Qasim. His head and Qasim's head are together. And Qasim, 14-year-old boy, his legs are dragging on the ground. In other words, his whole body was struck. When he comes in to the tent, my brothers and sisters, it's hard to imagine for you and me what Farwa went through. But I can tell you this much, that Imam Hussein went directly and called Farwa. Farwa, your son has come back. When Farwa came, she found Qasim. There's no way to describe this. I can simply say this much, that Karbala showed how inhuman were the people on the other side. And they all called themselves Muslims. Ya Allah, you are witness. Ya Allah, you are witness of Karbala. How long will we deny? How long will we be saying that this is not happened, this is an exaggeration? No, this is no exaggeration, my brothers and sisters. It happened in the real light of the history. And historians have mentioned it time and again. Qasim was one of those, by the way, who raised the consciousness in the khaymah of Imam Hussein al-Islam that when Qasim was killed, the khaymah changed its old tone because now Qasim had gone. Ali Akbar had already gone. Ona Muhammad had already gone. This is Qasim now. After Qasim, who is going? Abul Fazl Abbas will go. You can imagine who is left in the tent. Ya Allah, bihaqq Qasim ibn al-Hasan, Ya Allah. This is the time for the dua to be accepted, Ya Allah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. All together, ہمیں باہم بخونی. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. Let the ayah come from your heart. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. One more time. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُسْتَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم أغني كل فقير. اللهم أشبع كل جائع. اللهم اكس كل أريان. اللهم اقض دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غيث حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد.
قاسم نوشاد کا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین ایٹو سرہلے ازاں لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین مادر قاسم نیا لاش پہ رو کر کہاں آ گئی تم کو قضا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین سن کا کروں کیا بیان سال تھا وہ 13واں ہائے پرارمان چلا لاتے ہیں لاشا حسین اماں سے رخصت طلب کیوں نہیں ہوتے حسین کیا ہوا تم کو بھلا لاتے ہیں لاشاں حسین کیا کرے یوسف بیاں روتی ہیں سب بیویاں لب پہ تھا نوجوان لاتے ہیں لاشاں حسین کربل کی کہانی جب کوئی بھی سنائے گا کربل کی کہانی جب کوئی بھی سنائے گا دل والوں کے آنکھوں سے وہ کارواں سرور کا جو شان سے نکلا تھا صغرا کو خبر کیا تھی نہ لوٹ کے آئے گا کربل کی کہانی جب مہمان بلایا ہے اے کوفیو سرور کو کیا کنب شہیدی کا پانی نہیں پائے گا کربل کی کہانی جب پامال ہوا قاسم یوں گوروں کی ٹاپوں سے پامال ہوا قاسم یوں گوروں کی ٹاپوں سے کس طرح چچا تیری میت کو اٹھائے گا کربل کی کہانی جب اصحاب نے دم توڑا شبیر کے زانوں پر کس زانوں پہ سر اپنا شبیر کٹائے گا کربل کی کہانی جب سرور نے اٹھائی تھی سب ساتھیوں کے لاشیں سرور نے اٹھائی تھی سب ساتھیوں کے لاشیں شبیر تیرا لاشاں اب کون اٹھائے گا کربل کی کہانی جب کوئی بھی سنائے گا دل والوں کے آنکھوں سے ایک دریا بہائے گا سورۃ الفاتحہ Please sit down, we'll continue with Q&A.
Just hold on a second. Just hold on. If you could please take a seat. So I have a bit of a problem. I've been tasked with the feedback forms. and I've collected 10 so far. There are over 300 people here tonight, alhamdulillah. But that's 3%. So please, please fill out these feedback forms. We need to know what we're doing in terms of what we're doing right, what we would like to do moving forward. I have 10. There's some at the front. We've tried for the last 6 days to get feedback from you. We went as far as to put a survey or feedback form on each of your chairs with a pencil. There is no excuse. Please, please fill it out. And I'd like to request 3 volunteers from the men and 3 volunteers from the women to pick these forms back up from you, because I do not want any excuse. Because if I go back to the management board and they say, where are these surveys? Where are the results? I don't know what they're going to do to me, but I need to give them results. So please fill out those feedback forms. And can I get a show of hands for 3 volunteers from the men and 3 from the women to pick them back up? I have 1 from the women. Men, come on. 1, 2, and 3 men. 2 more women, please. 1 at the back. So that's 2. 1 more, please. Women, come on, you're being outnumbered. There we go. Thank you. So that is, please fill them out. And volunteers, please go and pick them up right now. Oh, and if anyone does not have a survey, please let us know. Put your hand up. We'll get one to you. So if I can get a show of hands if anyone doesn't have one.
What if I told you that you will enter Jannat if you did that?
Take my word. If only it were that easy. So I'll give ourselves about 2 minutes to fill them out, and then we'll start the Q&A session.
Any questions?
Yes.
Any questions?
Here, I'll give you just in case someone else. Thank you.
Salam.
Salaam alaikum.
This is related to your lecture,
Okay, good.
but it's about Imam Hussein.
Yes.
Raza Arsalan, in his book, has mentioned, the book is called Shia Revival, that the head of Imam Hussein is buried in Cairo at the Khan Khalili Mosque, whereas his body is buried in Karbala. I'd like to know your thoughts on this.
It's a very good question, historical question, by the way. Did you know that in Cairo we have Ras al-Hussein, the head of Imam Hussein? They show a mosque in Cairo, actually, where Al-Azhar is located. So if you go outside Al-Azhar, there is also this. By the way, during the Fatimid era, there was a lot of search for religious relics. Like we know about the Prophet's hair in Kashmir, his beard hair somewhere. If you go to Istanbul, in Topkapi Museum, there's also the Prophet's hair. And actually every Jummah people do the ziyarah of it, you know. So Imam Hussein's head is actually historically buried in Najaf, in the Zari of Imam Ali. Yes. His head did not come back to Karbala. It was buried by Imam Zainul Abidin in Najaf. So in Najaf, it's very interesting that when you read the Ziyarah of Imam Ali, you also read the Ziyarah of Imam Hussein. So if you read the Ziyarah of Imam Ali towards the Qibla, back of the Qibla you read the Ziyarah of Imam Hussein. My teachers used to read Ziyarat Ashura in the Haram of Imam Ali. So we have a history. A Fatimid dynasty did a lot of search for the relics of Ahlul Bayt. Cairo was their city. Al-Azhar was their school. And Ras al-Hussein was also part of their strategy, because it also provided them with some kind of legitimacy. That Imam Hussein, also Bibi Zainab, by the way, if you know, Bibi Zainab also is buried in Cairo. Again, Fatimid, attempt to get Bibi Zainab, Imam Hussein, somebody connected with. It's very interesting that in Cairo, even today, there's Ashura ceremony. The women in Cairo who are all Sunni Muslims. On the Ashura day, they go to the Qabristan and they take Fatiha and everything. So this is the remaining of the Fatimid tradition. So, but we know for sure, at least our research, people that who have done research have shown quite clearly that Imam Hussein's head is buried in Najaf, in the Zari of Imam Ali.
Do we have a question on the women's side? Or on the men?
Where is Bibi Zainab buried? Where is Bibi Zainab buried?
Bibi Zainab is buried in Damascus. But there are two riwayat. She is also buried in Cairo. So it is interesting to see that the Fatimid promoted the Cairo and all others the Halal, because Aleppo was also under the Shia domination. Hamdan, it was the Shia. They used to do the ziyarah of Bibi Zainab in Damascus. Now historically, we know that Bibi Zainab did travel to Cairo with her husband Abdullah bin Jafar. So he was a merchant and he used to take Bibi Zainab with him when he traveled. So that we know. But also after Karbala, we know that Bibi Zainab also came to Damascus and she was actually killed in the Damascus. Where she is buried today in Damascus is the garden, where she was actually struck by the enemy. One of the, persons who did not agree with Ahlul Bayt was the one who killed her. So Bibi Zainab, wherever you read her, wherever you do the ziyarah for her, it is okay. You don't have to, worry too much. I have been to Cairo also, to do the ziyarah of Bibi Zainab. It's very nice. In Rajab in Cairo, they celebrate the birthday of Bibi Zainab in the month of Rajab. So there's a big gathering for her. There's also Sayyida Nafisa, Imam Hassan's granddaughter or something. I don't know her genealogy proper, but she is also buried in Cairo. Sayyida Nafisa, where Imam Shafi is buried. Because Imam Shafi was very much part of the Hashemite, and love with the Hashemites.
Another question?
Well, if you're tired.
Well, I was trying not to hog the mic, and I was hoping somebody from Iraq would be asking questions. I know that you talked about the sustainability of the earth and our responsibility for it. Is that something that you find that you have like a short list of the things that people who are not big business and people who are not in government, ordinary people like us, would do, other than plant trees and do not be wasteful of energy?
The four elements that are always mentioned is water, air, earth, and what is it? Water, air, earth. Yeah. All these are part of the human responsibility to protect and to take care of. Now, water is a wider category, which might include everything from drainage, from storage, from, water pools, everything else. Air also, because air pollution is a big issue in cancer today. Cancer is very much, connected with that kind of, diseases, especially lung cancer. This is not only cigarette, but also the polluted air. I don't know. I really don't know about the medical aspects of it. But certainly, the earth also, you can't, torture the earth, so to speak. So there are, what I have found is that Sayyid Hussain Nasr has a book on spiritual responsibility in the protection of environment, I think. I think that's the title. You might look up in online, Sayyid Hussain Nasr has a book. And there are other books also that are written in that light. Environmental protection, biospheres, and everything that you and I know today, that they need to be protected. And how, but to my horror, what I have found to be the destruction of the environment in the Middle East is horrible, horrible, horrible. Waters, mountains, parks. Should see the way plastic is thrown everywhere. Plastic is, contaminating the rivers. So there's a lot of that happening. So I think, I would say one thing, that it is commonsensical that we who need certain things as part of our own benefit should be able to protect it. I know I need clean air. I know I need clean water. I know I need this and that. And I think investing in those is what is really suggested by the Quran and the Hadith. You mentioned the book of Wali Nasr, by the way. That's a very weak book, by the way. Some of the Shia things that are there were provided to him by Kazim Abbas, an Iraqi scholar who was at military academy in California where Wali was. So there are some areas where more research was appropriate. But it's a book for policy makers. It's not a book for scholars.
He converted to Christianity, then reconverted back to Islam.
Oh, did he? I don't know. I didn't know that.
About Raza Aslam. No, but he's talking about Raza.
Wali Nasr.
Raza Aslam.
Oh, Raza Aslan is different. Wali Nasr has the one on that, by the way, the book on the Shia triangle or something, he has it, and he has used a lot of information given by Kazim Abbas as the scholar in residence in military school. Any other questions? Yes.
What is your opinion, sir, on the veneration of religious relics? You mentioned religious relics. You mentioned it in some of the other questions near the end of your speech.
Zarizm.
Oh, Zarini. Okay. Veneration is not the right term that we would use, because veneration suggests some kind of saint worship. It suggests some kind of, against the religion, tawheed, etc. So there is an element there that is questionable. If you say respect of the burial places, we are supposed to respect all burial places, regardless. We are not supposed to contaminate any graves anywhere. So it's even more expected, commonsensically, to say that a respected man has been buried here, let us show respect to that man. So it's okay, but veneration means almost worshipping it. That is not allowed. We don't venerate even the Imam's graves. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment about the environment.
Yes.
There's a movie, a short movie on YouTube, The Story of Stuff. It's a few years old, but it shows the disaster we are causing. The Story of Stuff.
S-A-F-F?
S-T-U-F-F.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum salam.
I just wanted to understand that what you said about the compilation of the Quran was done by Prophet himself, like it was done at that time.
Yes, yes. I'm opening a big lecture topic here. Now, I would just want to say that Ayatollah Khoei's research is based on the evidence that is prevalent in both Sunni sources and other sources, that the compilation was done by the Prophet under his own supervision. Al-Itqan is one of those sources that mentions the method of how the Prophet used to edit. He would ask the scribe to read back to him, and then he would say, this is what I said. It was not Sami'un Alim, I said Sami'un Hakim. For example, he would correct that no, I did not use this word, I used that word. The other riwayat is that Abu Bakr was sitting one day in the mosque after the early campaigns against the Ridda, against the tribes that had rejected the authority of Medina. And Umar ibn al-Khattab came to Abu Bakr and said, you know how many Qurra, that means the readers of the Quran, have been killed in this battle. And it is very important for us to make sure that the Quran is collected and compiled. Now, the hadith that I have seen says that Abu Bakr said, but the Prophet didn't do it. How can we do something the Prophet didn't do it? So he disagreed with Umar ibn al-Khattab. And Umar ibn al-Khattab went away. And the hadith goes on, by the way. It says that Abu Bakr then thought about it. And he was inspired that this should be done. So he called Zayd bin Zabit, who was one of the scribes who had the compilation of the Quran. When he told Zayd that we want this Quran to be compiled, Zayd said, but the Prophet didn't do it himself. Why are we doing something? This is bid'ah. It's a bid'ah, which is the innovation. And the story goes on to show that the hadith ends with Abu Bakr died, and Umar ibn al-Khattab, before his death, he gave the compiled copy of the Quran that was compiled by Zayd bin Sabit to his daughter Hafsa, the wife of the Prophet. That was the copy used by Uthman with the other copies with some other Sahaba to compile, to make the final canonical, or the final copy that we have in our hand, which is known as Mushaf Uthman. This is the Uthmanic Codex. This is challenged by Western scholars as much as Ayatollah Khoei, that this hadith is not exactly what happened. Rather, the Prophet himself, he knew the value of the Quran from the very beginning. Although the Quran was not written down, but he had the scribes writing it down. And therefore, before he died, it was already in the shape of a book, scrolls. And that was the one that was used by Uthman later on for the canonization. But Uthman had at least 7 different versions of the Quran. Before he chose one version, and the rest he burned them. Yes, the rest of the copies were burnt because he was afraid a fitna would start, like it started among the Christians about the 4 versions of the gospel. The Muslims then would have 4 or 5 different versions of the Quran. So he said, no, we will not allow that to happen. So you have a very interesting history. I don't know how much to believe, how much to, but one thing I know, that the Mus'haf we have now in our hands, Amir al-Mu'minin, Ali ibn Abi Talib, confirmed it to be the Quran. I think that's hujjat for me at least, that this is the Quran that I follow, So there's no other Quran.
Assalamu alaikum, Hassan Bhai.
Yeah.
Did the Prophet in the last khutbah say that I am leaving behind you the book and my Ahlul Bayt? So if the Quran was not yet compiled, why would he say the book?
Very good question, and it is a very important question today in the Quranic studies. Kitab did not mean a physical book. Kitab simply meant that which was registered in the memory. So Kitabullah wa itrati doesn't mean Kitabullah, or Kitabullah wa sunnati doesn't mean Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim Sunnah. Kitabullah wa itrati or Kitabullah wa itrati Ahlul Bayti wa Kitabullah wa sunnati, they all mean my teachings. Because people did remember the Quran. There were many. One of the things in the Arab culture and the Semitic culture was there was a lot of emphasis on memorization. So the Quran was preserved in the memory of the people. When Zayd started collecting, this riwayat that I cited before also says that Zayd called upon people who remembered sections of the Quran and would tell them, read for me so that I can write it down. Or he would tell the wives of the Prophet, he would tell the Sahaba of the Prophet, give me whatever you have. And he, from what we are reading, it says, it was written on the white stone, it was written on the shoulder blade of a camel because it used to be big, it was written on the papyrus, which was a kind of paper. But interestingly, I must say, Chinese paper was known in Medina during the Prophet's time. Kartasi, we say in Swahili. Oh, it is Kartas. Kartas is what was known. So, in other words, kitab doesn't mean physical book. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى. There was no kitab at that point. Surah Al-Baqarah was just starting. But it simply means that which has been registered in the heavenly book. Because Kitabullah also existed فِي لَوْحٍ مَحْفُوظ, in the preserved tablet in the heavens.
We'll take one more question if there is one.
There is one, and there is.
Assalamu alaikum. Did Imam Ali play a role in the compilation of the Quran? Who? Imam Ali.
Imam Ali had compiled it, and I'm talking about the Sunni tradition, brother. I'm not talking about Shia tradition here. He compiled and he brought it during the Khilafah of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Umar al-Khattab did not accept it from him. And instead of being angry and taking revenge, he kept it okay, all right. Otherwise there would have been fitna, there would have been to Quran. Believe it or not, Imam Ali had a prestige. He would have divided the community very easily. But he did not do that. But he did compile. And that hadith has been examined very carefully by the scholars. It's a hadith pure, known by both schools of thought, the Shia and the Sunni both.
So was that also burnt?
Pardon?
Was that also burnt by, like you said, the others were burnt? Was this also burnt, or was
No,
this
no.
outside?
Imam Ali's authority was too powerful to be taken into consideration in the compilation of the Mus'haf under Uthman. It might have divided, it might have created, and Imam Ali knew about it. Because he was at all occasions with the Prophet when the Quran was revealed. He had an advantage that nobody had. From the day one, even all the other companions, with all due respect to them, all the Khala, Rashidun, they had good status, whatever it is. But nobody had the experience of witnessing the coming down of the Quran like Imam Ali had. But Imam Ali also knew the danger, because he also reminds us what happened to Christianity, what happened to Judaism. And he knew that something would happen here also, because Imam Ali had a prestige. His prestige was known. He was a commander, he was a soldier, he was highly respected by the Prophet. The Prophet during the last Hajj, he said, Al-Haqqu ma'ali wa aliyyun ma'al-haqq. What else do you need for somebody's authentication, so to speak? And Imam Fakhruddin Razi in his tafsir says, this is what Ali was. Ali was Al-Haqqu ma'ali wa aliyyun ma'al-haqq. In other words, you could not dispute Ali's authority. But Imam Ali never abused his authority.
The reason I ask that is because is there any historical position of the writings of Imam Ali? Was it ever said, since it was not burnt or destroyed, Was it said anywhere?
The problem is that all historical sources, I must be very careful about history. All historical sources are posthumous. That means they are written after the events occurred. In other words, it's like I gave a lecture and I'm asking you now write about what my lecture said. You're going to make a lot of mistakes about it, what I say, unless you go through the recordings and find out what I said. So there's a possibility, despite the proper recording of the lecture today, it could be misrepresented by you or by anyone else. Even by me tomorrow, if you ask me, what did you say last night, then I would not remember, unless I have my notes in front of me. What I'm suggesting is that historical records must be taken with a grain of salt. Historical records are post facto. That means they are written after the events have occurred. Therefore, there's always a question mark in front of them. Like Karbala, we are extremely careful. I am extremely careful in relating Karbala to you. Unless I have seen it somewhere, I'm not willing to give you the story. Because it is a great responsibility. I don't want to mislead you in anything. People have asked me, how do you know what Bibi Zainab said to Imam Hussain? What Imam? I said, well, it is in the books here. It says that this is what Imam said. Now, Imam Zain al-Abidin himself reported. Imam Bibi Zainab reported. So there are riwayats coming from themselves. Now, it also should be kept in mind that riwayat reached us after 100 years, after 200 years. So we don't know. We really don't know, honestly. How much should we accept as given? So we should be very careful about historical narratives, all narratives about history. The only thing that we have intact today in our hand is the Quran. So we are lucky to have the Quran. The Christians don't even have that one. The Hebrews don't have that either. The Jews don't have. So, we have the Quran, but we still don't know the nuances of the Quran, the way we read it. It's a mystery. I'm telling you, I'm teaching a course now. That's why I'm more up to date with the Quranic information, because I'm teaching a course. And the course is text and context. How do you determine the context of a text? There is no text for which there is no context. If I say something and if you write it down, tomorrow if you talk about it, then you have to provide a context for it. That this was the context in which these things were said. It would make sense of what I say. So, imagine you and I are not even Karbala. We're not in Karbala. We are reciting Karbala. We're telling stories about things. We are not even there. And it is very hard to ascertain the validity and reliability of what we are saying. We say these things in all humility. The Quran says, don't ever claim absolute knowledge about history. There's no absolute knowledge about history. History is crafted by people. Yes, it is. Some in favor, some against, some neutral. But that's how histories are written.
Thank you, Abdulaziz uncle. I think that was the last question. I hope to see as many of you as possible tomorrow morning for our seminar. It's at 10 a.m. If you haven't already registered, please do. You can talk to me or Abdul uncle at the back, or even register at the front table there. We need to know how many people are coming for the purposes of catering. So please do let us know. It's at 10 a.m. tomorrow here. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum ya Mawla ya Aba Abdullah.